In this thrilling story, I am forced to confront my deepest fears in the true faces of those I trusted. I must make choices, continue to run from my destiny, or bravely face those who have betrayed me and save those I love. It's a complex story about courage, sacrifice, and family, filled with twists and surprises. Chapter 18, Animalistic Desire. Fiona's POV. Rowan carried me across the room, his lips never leaving mine as I raked my hands through his silky hair, kissing him back with a fervor I didn't know I possessed. Our passion felt explosive, animalistic, yet tender at the same time, and I couldn't get enough. A tingling sensation engulfed me, starting in my core, and I prayed the feeling would last forever. We tumbled onto the couch. Rowan's hands moved under my tank top, stroking my skin, and when his fingers roamed beneath my breasts, I groaned and grabbed his face, drawing him closer and biting his bottom lip. Rowan's moans of pleasure were my undoing, and I pressed on his bare broad shoulders, giving myself some room. I yanked the offending garment over my head before pulling his face to my chest. As he took my pebbled nipple in his mouth, teasing it with his teething tongue, I thought I would die from lust. "Don't stop," I whispered, running my nails up and down his sculpted back. Once I knew I could take no more. He swallowed my cries with his full lips capturing mine, and I grabbed his buttocks, drawing him hard against my ex. Rowan's throbbing sex rubbed against mine, and we rocked together as one. My head was swimming from the sheer desire taking over my body and mind. Nothing mattered at that moment. Nothing except the primal need for him to take me right there on the couch. The world could have ended and I wouldn't have cared. As long as this month satisfied the all-consuming hunger taking over my sanity and senses. I had experienced nothing like it before. After Rowan teased my neck, biting and trading moist kisses down past my collarbone, I guided his face toward my other breast and threw my head back, wanting to scream from the exquisite agony. I had never been this forceful with a man before, but I pushed away the thought because it felt so right. Any other time, it would have filled me with shame to be acting like such a wanton creature. But not with Rowan. I had thrown away all my inhibitions and wanted this man right now. Yet I still felt conflicted. I wished to savor the moment of exploring each other's bodies, but yearned for him to take me and ease this longing. Intense desire pounded from within my body, making me both hopeless and daring. I dropped my hands between our meshed skin, finding the button on his jeans, and he lifted his hips, allowing me to complete my task. We raised up from the couch, now on our knees, and I shoved Rowan's pants and underwear down to his muscular, firm hips and eyed his thick erection, licking my lips as I glanced up at him. Rowan groaned, his eyes mere slits, and I pushed him onto his back, straddling him above the knees, before bending down and licking his pulsing shaft from the base to the head and continuing to tease him. He withered and growled, and I felt the wetness between my thighs. "Fiona, I can't take much more." "Nurse." I captured his erection, stroking up and down before capturing his girth in my mouth, and his pelvis matched my rhythm. Before allowing me to finish, I found myself thrown onto my back, shorts ripped from my hips, and Rowan entered me in one slick motion. The sensation was too much, and I gripped his buttocks, tugging him closer while his frenzied thrusts took me over the edge. I cried out in ecstasy, whimpering as the orgasm crashed like waves, filling me with such pleasure I couldn't catch my breath. My legs trembled as Rowan pulled out of me, only to trail kisses from my stomach down to my now sensitive sex. "What are you doing?" "I can't handle it." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "It's too intense though right now." He continued licking my center, and nipping me with gentle precision until I felt the build up growing stronger and stronger. I drew his head closer, tugging on his hair while a primal euphoria rocked me once again. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes, yes. Feeling no shame. "You like that, my little fairy lass." He stood in all his without clothes glory and held out his hand. Rowan hauled me up, and I stood on weakened legs before he bent me over on the couch, grabbing me from behind. As he clutched my hips and lined up his erection against my slit, I relished in the sultry heat radiating from the head of his member. Teasing me, he rubbed it up and down my center before pulling out and slapping it on my ass cheeks. Please. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I need you inside me again now. He growled and slammed into me, holding my hips hard against his pelvis as he rocked and moaned, lifting my hips higher before yanking out and plunging back in. I'm not sure how long I will last. You're so fucking hot and sexy. Rowan pounded into me over and over. I clenched my teeth as I felt another orgasm building, ready to explode. I'm gonna come again. The third time's the charm, and let's come together. Love. Rowan made a loud guttural cry while thrusting in and out with frantic, powerful strokes, pushing us both over the edge. Our screams of release meshed together like a crescendo of sound bouncing off the walls, and we collapsed onto the floor, holding each other. When I grinned at him, he planted a kiss on my nose and forehead. It was the most beautiful experience of my life, and I couldn't imagine another man ever touching me again. I woke up smiling and snuggled closer to Rowan's warm body, our legs tangled together, and his arm draped over my waist. My mind wandered to our lovemaking that started in his office, and a blush crept across my cheeks in his darkened bedroom. He carried me to his room, where we unleashed more passion than I knew was possible, and it was official. I was in love with a broody, stubborn, sexy ass-alpha werewolf. The idea sounded crazy, but it was true. I didn't know what the future held for us, or if we had a future. He was an alpha wolf, and I was a hybrid half-human, half-fairy. While I understood little about werewolf customs or even fairies, I knew wolves had certain mates. I'd read enough supernatural romance novels to grasp that much. The thought of not spending my life with Rowan caused sorrow to settle in my gut. There was something different about him, and I hadn't thought about Dermot, the jerk I had broken up with for cheating on me, since meeting Rowan. The night my life changed, and my world fell to pieces scattered at my feet. There were still so many unanswered questions, and I prayed we would find some answers when I returned to my childhood home for the last time. I hoped to never lay eyes on the man I called father, my whole life ever again. Rowan stirred and pulled me closer as he woke up. My mind raced, wondering if things would be awkward between us. He nuzzled my neck and groaned while kissing my back. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My sexy lass. Rowan grabbed my waist, turning my body toward his, greeting me with a sleepy smile. He looked like a dream with his tousle hair and boyish, crooked grin, and I grinned back, grateful the room was dark enough to cover the heat rising from my chest and settling on my cheeks. Hey you. Hoping my morning breath wasn't awful. But he kissed me, and the thought disappeared as soon as his tongue touched mine. The depth of the kiss progressed, and his scent, faint soap, bergamot, spice, loamy earth, and man enveloped me. Rowan dragged me atop of him, running his hands up and down my arms, along my sides, and then my bum. A grin flickered in his darkened eyes. Here we go again. Running my fingers through his ebony hair as I continued to kiss his lush, firm lips. Rowan sighed, a noise more like a growl, and rubbed his pelvis against mine, nudging me to the point of no return, before pushing himself up on his palms and gazing into my eyes. I want you, lass. I can't get enough. But this time, I want to take it slow, and savor every moment. I regarded Rowan in awe, his eyes half open and clouded with lust. He knew I wanted him just as much and leaned down, kissing me with such tenderness I thought I would cry. Rowan spent the next 5 minutes worshipping my body, forcing me to the edge and pulling away before I came undone. You cheeky man, stop teasing me. It was hard to speak through my ragged breaths. He planted his erection at my core, spreading my thighs wide, and grinned down before entering me a little at a time with slow, measured strokes until I thought I would perish. Once altogether inside, towering over me, Rowan's expression grew serious. Fiona, I meant it. This morning we are making love, not lust. I swallowed past the lump in my throat as tears threatened to fall, burning behind my eyelids. But do you love me? Embarrassment flooded me as I realized the boldness of my question. Lord help me. I do. Lass. The breath I was holding came out in a rush and row, and did what he said he was going to do. We made slow, sweet, passionate, and unforgettable love, ruining me for any other man. As we lay spent, tangled in the sheets and breathing hard, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And God help me. I love you, too, Rowan O'Connell, so very much. Chapter 19, Checkmate. Rowan's POV. Wednesday's arrival brought with it apprehension, leaving me feeling ill, like a rock had landed in my stomach. I had been trying my best to avoid Fiona since our intimate encounter and confessions of love, and although I wanted more than anything to tell Fiona she was my maiden marker, I knew it was too risky. If I confessed the truth, it would further complicate matters that were already dangerous. While Fiona consumed my mind, body, and soul every second of the day, I continued hiding behind flimsy excuses, dodging her like a plague. I wrestled with myself for days, an internal battle like no other, over my careless actions and uncontrollable need for her. I allowed weakness and emotion to control me and tossed logic out the window. But my longing for her was all-consuming, and I realized being with Fiona wasn't a preference but a natural reaction. Like breathing, humans had choices for picking a spouse or partner. I didn't. Sure, one could reject their mate, it happened a lot, but after experiencing it firsthand, I was even more baffled. I knew with Fiona anywhere in my orbit, I could never deny her. I had to send Fiona somewhere safe and far away from me as soon as possible. But my future seemed bleak, knowing I would end up a miserable sod without her. Yet fate could be cruel. If I gave in to my desires, the outcome might be catastrophic for my pack, my family, and Fiona. Why had fate chosen Fiona as my destined mate? And would it be selfish to mock her anyway and deal with the aftermath? Or was this some kind of test? I groaned aloud in the silence as a war waged inside me and raked a tired hand through my hair. In my alone time, shunning Fiona, I wondered if there was some bond stronger than others. I didn't understand how some wolves could cast aside their mates, preferring another. She was like a magnet, drawing me to her, and no other woman on earth or beyond would satisfy my need. Fiona completed me, and without her, I'd never be whole. Despite berating myself for my weakness, I would never regret what we shared. However, I had regrets. My actions seemed selfish, leaving me feeling ashamed. Knowing Fiona felt the same about me and hearing those for precious words, "I love you, too," whispered from her pretty mouth, caused me endless conflicting emotions. Our intimacy filled me with joy and relief, but despair and anger followed like a dark, rain-filled cloud. She deserved before I had the right to lay a finger on her, and I felt like the world's biggest jerk for my deception. The only woman I would ever love could never be mine, and her affection would soon turn to scorn, maybe even hatred. I played out so many scenarios of Fiona's reaction when she discovered the truth, and each one seemed more brutal than the last. After learning her whole life had been a lie, what would this new revelation do to her? My stomach burned at the thought of causing her pain, and I despised my life, my responsibilities, my loyalty, and most of all, I was a greedy bastard and a proper coward. Last night, after drowning my sorrows with too much whiskey, I promised to tell her everything the following day, but it was now supper time, and I had found another excuse to put it off. We decided as a group that going to Quinn's today would be too reckless, since Fiona wasn't sure when his flight to London and departed. We would leave early Thursday morning and begin an extensive search of the entire property. I hoped we would find everything the loathsome man had regarding Fiona, her gnome, cat, and 6 flicks tomorrow, but no later than Friday. I knew in my gut that he was involved with the drug. But we had to be extra cautious, since Cormac Quinn was a clever and slippery man. I feared Cormac might know Cat and Fiona ever left town, or he could return early, and I wasn't willing to take the chance of running into the evil scientist on his home turf, with potential dilemmas overwhelming me. I finished my stew and washed down my last bite with ale. I peered at the ceiling in my office and asked, why me? My nerves felt frayed, especially after glancing at the time on my phone. We would all gather in 10 quick minutes to make plans for tomorrow, forcing me to be in the same room with Fiona. My only saving grace was we wouldn't be alone. Imagine an alpha werewolf afraid of a mere lass. It sounded absurd, but my terror was genuine. The time had come, and as we sat around the kitchen table, I felt Fiona's eyes on me, leaving my skin burning. So I kept my gaze on Rianne. I don't think it should come with us just in case Cormac turns up. I'm going, she spat, and I watched her flash pleading eyes toward Fiona. To stay safe. We only have Thursday and Friday to search the entire place. So you need me. A ties in hands are better than 3, Fiona said, taking up for Cat. We are being extra cautious already, and I want her with me or I won't go. And if I don't go, Fiona threw me a wicked grin, knowing I couldn't get in without her. Besides, we know the place like the back of our hands. She spoke with conviction, her eyes filled with rage, and I realized I couldn't go on treating her like a stranger. Avoiding Fiona after what we shared was harsh, and giving her the cold shoulder was childish. I wondered when I had become such a coward and cruel creature. As I sat listening to the girls argue the benefits of Cat coming along, I knew it was past the time for complete honesty. I would explain and beg Fiona for forgiveness once we had searched Quinn's property. But right now, I needed my head in the game. What's the worst that could happen? BROE unshrugged and threw me a tight smile. I felt my eye twitch and a tick in my jaw. Great. It was 3 against 1. Unless I wanted to throw my weight around and use the alpha card. But I already felt like a wimp and a jerk. So pulling rank seemed like a real dick move. Sometimes people had to pick their battles, and this was one I didn't want to fight. Ryan, you know what could happen? I'm only trying to protect Cat, because Quinn has some weird fascination with her. We still don't know why. And if one of his goons finds us while we are searching. I furrowed my brows but said no more. Thank you for caring, but I have lived through his abuse for years. I want to come, and if the worst happens, well, it's on me, not you. I let out a deep sigh. But I really could use you here. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To help with Kyra, what about all your guards? Fiona scoffed, folding her arms under her chest. The guards will be here patrolling the house and perimeter, but your father has ways. I gathered sufficient courage to peek at Fiona and wished I hadn't. Her fury seemed palpable and alive, but I soldiered on, remembering I'd brought it on myself. Kyra has taken to both of you, and I thought to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by protecting Cat while allowing Kyra a chance to have some female company. Which is it? Fiona arched one dark brow, challenging me. Do you want Cat to stay behind for protection or to babysit Kyra? I knew she didn't care either way, but wanted to argue and punish me for hurting her. Fiona needed an excuse for her bitterness, since we weren't alone for her to say what was really on her mind. Some may deem her actions petty, but I deserved her disdain. Oh boy, she will flay me alive the moment we are alone. Already dreading it. Listen, lass, I've agreed to Cat going. Now can we move on and finish this discussion about our plans? We all need a good night's sleep. Even though I spoke with softness to appease Fiona, it still enraged her. As suggested by eyes reduced to mere slits and her rigid posture, she huffed and gave me a quick military salute. Sure, Alpha Wolf, you're the boss and captain of this ship. I relaxed my gritted teeth, reminding myself that Fiona had every right to provoke me. I am not trying to boss anyone. Lass, let's work together as a team. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What if? She grimaced, rolling her eyes. Ryan and Kat seemed riveted, glancing between us in our one-sided sparring session. My brother's eyebrows soared with confusion, and his mouth twitched in amusement from his big brother Alfie O'Connell allowing this slip of a girl to berate him. He knew what a dominant, moody bastard I was. I gave him a sidelong stare, and my mouth thinned with displeasure. Brian bit his bottom lip, trying to swallow his grin. Within minutes, we finished ironing out all the details, and I had never been so relieved to escape to my room for the night. Dawn was upon me in what seemed like a flash, and my cell phone sounded its annoying alarm screeching noise that should be illegal at such an hour. Enthusiasm, in the dark, I smacked around on my nightstand to turn off the offending tone that was like a frenzied death in my ears. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And headed to the kitchen, where the smell of eggs, coffee, and sausage made my mouth water. I rushed down the hall and halted, noticing Fiona at the stove. We were alone. I was unprepared. This was not good. Don't even think about it. Rowan O'Connell. She whirled around as I backtracked out of the room. Fiona charged at me with a greasy metal spatula in her hand and her blue eyes flashed like heat lightning. I put up my palms, surrendering, and stood still. Thirdly, Lars, but put the weapon down. She snorted and looked at the greasy spatula. Weapon? Don't tell me Big Bad Alpha O'Connell is afraid of a little kitchen utensil. Fiona waved the spatula in the air, her lips trembling from suppressed laughter. Well, it's not so much the utensil as the spitfire holding it. My mouth was no longer watering, quite the contrary, and I swallowed hard. Fiona, we need to talk, but her smile disappeared like clouds retreating behind the moon. Those famous for words. We need to talk. She shook her head in disgust. Forget it. Lover boy. I get it. So relax. It's my fault thinking it meant something when. Damn it. Lars, it meant something to me. Just save your breath. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Yes, you hurt me, and I was angry, but I'm over it now. Let's just get the next few days over, and we can go our separate ways. Kapitchno. We are discussing things as soon as we return here today. Fiona stomped back to the stove. Kapiki. She ignored me. With an exaggerated sigh, I sided up behind Fiona, spinning her around to face me. She tried to growl in protest, but it came out more like a puny moan. Holding her by the upper arms, I stared into her stormy eyes. There are things I must tell you. Last, she struggled in vain against my hold. Listen to me. Fiona, she exhaled, giving in, but continued to pierce me with a stony glare. I'm listening. Say what you must, since I don't appear to have a choice. Fiona glanced at my hands around her arms. You always have a choice. I told her. My words took me aback, causing me to reflect on my earlier musings. If that was true, why didn't I have one regarding Fiona? Why couldn't I mark her as my mate? I knew the reasons, and they were valid, but I wanted to have a choice. What could I do to keep her? With those thoughts swirling in my head, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Loving you isn't a choice. It's a fact. I watched the anger leave her eyes, replaced by shock or confusion, and I released my grip, rubbing her arms. But I want a choice for our future. Damn it. What does that even mean? Her brow hitting her hairline. That I can't live without you. Lars? I whispered and covered her lips with mine. Fiona's body melted into me, a reminder of what fulfillment and happiness felt like. Damn. Something smells good. Rianne yelled from the doorway, ruining the moment. Chapter 20, Day of Reckoning. Fiona's POV. When will you be back? Asked Kyra from the top of the stairs, her arms crossed. and anxiety was evident on her face. "If we haven't returned by tonight, alert the council and tell them everything," Rowan said, handing Kyra a slip of paper with Cormac's address before kissing her cheek. "It's going to be okay," I said with a broad smile, hoping to calm her. Kyra followed us outside as we all climbed into the SUV, watching with weary eyes. I felt awful for her and waved as Rianne took off. After 30 long minutes of silence, we pulled into a parking spot at a park a few blocks away from Quinn's house. Rowan turned in his seat, regarding me and Kat, and I saw a muscle jerk in his jaw. He let out a sigh. "Well, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's get this over with, and hopefully, neither of you will have to deal with this sick bastard ever again. But remember, especially Quinn, shows up, you girls make a run for the SUV." Rowan glared between us, waiting for a response. We nodded, and he tossed the keys at me. "Don't get separated if you can help it. Are you sure you don't want us to wait for you in the vehicle for at least 5 minutes?" Kat asked. No, Rowan shook his head. "Head back to the house and have Kyra contact the pack as we spoke about last night. If we can, Rowan and I will help you both escape. And if Cormac shows up, go straight back to the house. Tell Kyra there's a possibility that we are in danger," Rianne said, agreeing with his brother. "Wait," I shook my head, confused. "I just thought of something. How do we get back? You once said we would never find your house on our own." Rowan pointed at the GPS attached to the dash and touched on an orange jack shaped like a house. "Just tap this, lass." My stomach twisted as beads of sweat popped along my forehead. "Relax, Fiona. This is worst case scenario stuff. Everyone ready?" Ryan lifted his brows and glanced at us. I let out a ragged breath and glanced between the brothers. "All right, let's focus on any hardware and important paperwork first." We made computers, files, and anything tangible brought out to the SUV before we do a deep search. That way, if we get interrupted, it won't be all for nothing, Rowan said before exiting the vehicle. Once inside the gate, I stared ahead at the imposing home I grew up in. A chilling sensation, like little spiders crawling down my spine, almost stopped me in my tracks. I licked my top lip, tasting the briny sweat beaded there, and sensed the essence of malice before me. "Listen, I have a terrible feeling about this," I mumbled to Kat. She grabbed my hand, giving it a squeeze. "It's gonna be okay. You're just nervous and so am I." Kat threw me a tight smile, but I noticed the uncertainty and fear in her eyes. "Let's get this over with and behind us. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." After a fake smile, I released her hand, but the dread remained. The knowledge that something terrible could happen continued to gnaw at me. An odd premonition, like a slideshow of memory, played out in my mind's eye, but I shook it off and inserted the key into the lock. My hands shook, and the keychain dropped to the concrete. I wiped my wet palms on my jeans, licked my salty lip, and tried again. "Do you need help, nurse?" I felt Rowan's approach. His body heat surrounded me, causing more undue anxiety. "No, sorry," with a shake of my head. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Got it." I pushed open the door, praying we made it out of here unscathed. No one spoke as we crossed the threshold, and I marched straight to my father's study. After collecting his laptop, several folders, and a few notebooks, Rowan sent him back to the SUV with our findings. "Wait," I cried out. "Don't go out the front door. Let me show you a different door to use. There's a side gate as well, but it has a keypad. Just long press the 8, and the gate will open. Long press the 8. Rianne rolled his eyes. I figured Quinn would have some crazy code, but whatever. Show me to the other door. 8 is his favorite number. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Shrugging my shoulders. That doesn't surprise me. The number 8 is often associated with power, victory, and strength. And Quinn is a bloody cocky bastard. Rowan shook his head. And we left the study behind. I was breathing easier. And realized my earlier stress was silly. Cormac was in London. And we should be safe. I stood silent, clenching my teeth, listening as Kat and Rowan made small talk while we waited for Rian to return. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hollow feeling inside my stomach intensified being this close to him, and I yearned for solitude. I wanted a bed in a dark room to lick my wounds in private. My head was spinning, my emotions spent, and I didn't understand Rowan and his mixed signals. I had been such an idiot for giving in to his charms and falling into bed with him. What had I been thinking? I hadn't. I failed to think things through. Or else we wouldn't be in this predicament. I still couldn't wrap my head around the werewolf thing. Who am I kidding? I can trap my brain around any of it, werewolves. Vampires. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And that's what I needed to focus on. Instead of being lovesick over a man who changed his mind like I changed underwear. One moment, Rowan was being nasty to me, and then we were rolling around in the sheets. Then he ghosted me before proclaiming his love. It all seemed too much, and I was finished, done with Alpha O'Connell. That was fast. Kat's voice brought me back to reality. I don't play around. Rian smiled. So what next? He rubbed his palms together, ready to get on with the task at hand. The lab, Rowan announced, and his eyes met mine. I held his gaze, my face void of expression, but sensed the color rise from my chest, settling on my cheeks and ears like fire. Damn him. Back in the lab. My body shuddered, and I felt sweat beading along my lip again. It was the room I dreaded visiting again, and the strange feeling assaulted my senses like before. The lost, long, buried memory seemed out of reach as I took in my surroundings. Even the room smelled like dread as I searched the recesses of my mind. What the hell happened here? Are you okay, lass? I turned toward the sound and found Rowan standing far too close, with his arm almost touching mine. My body jerked in response. I scrambled away from him, flashing a fake smile, and rubbed my upper arms. Yes, sorry. This room gives me the creeps, and I know something horrible happened here. Something besides Cormac cutting off my wings. Since I was too young to remember that heinous deed. You're lucky you don't remember, Kat said. I turned toward her, and my breath hitched in my throat, taking in her paleness and the faraway look in her eyes. Kat shaking my head. I strode to her side and grabbed her hands. I am so sorry. That was insensitive of me. Please forgive me. Why are you apologizing? Love. Just because Cormac has subjected me to more of his vile treatment, I remember does not diminish what he did to you. She stared into my eyes, and I blinked, letting the tears roll and check down my face. I felt her arms engulf me, and I welcomed the hug. Woe uncleared his throat. Ladies, I hate to intrude, but we really must. Don't be a dick. Mate. Rian seethed. I released Kat and wiped my nose and eyes. No, Rowan is right. We need to get on with it. Well, yes, but that was uncalled for. Rian shot his brother with a stormy glare. Look here. Bro, I wasn't trying to be an ass. But we are in a precarious situation. I'd like us to get what we need and get the hell out of here. Do you trust Cormac Quinn enough to meander around his house? With his brows hitting his hairline, Rowan continued staring at Rian, and I saw the tension ticking in his jaw. I get it. I do. But maybe show a bit of compassion. Rian shrugged, maintaining a scowl. A confrontation was brewing, and I needed to step in. And this minor disagreement is also costing us time. My words gained their attention, and without speaking, we resumed our search. We loaded Rian down with more files and another laptop while Kat was busy picking a lock on a big metal cabinet. Ryan, run that stuff to the SUV and come straight back to the lab. Once we finish here, I say we hit the old man's private quarters and then the outbuildings. Rowan stood behind Cormac's desk, his arms folded across his broad chest. You got it. I shall return. Rian gave a quick salute and dashed from the room. Rowan and I stood behind Kat as she attempted to unlock the large, sterile looking cabinet. I stared at Kat's back, feeling Rowan's gaze on me. His scrutiny made me uneasy, so I shuffled from foot to foot, unsure what to do. Do you want me to give it a go? Rowan asked. I whirled on him, placing my palms on my hips. Why, with a chuckle. Why what? Don't play coy. You know I'm asking why you want to give it a go. Alpha Wolf. Because I threw my hand out, palm facing him, teeth clenched. Because you think you are better at then. Fiona. That's not shut up. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Just shut the fuck up. I'm so bloody sick and tired of your holier than thou attitude. Striding toward him, anger seemed to radiate from my pores, and I relished watching his eyes round. Alpha O'Connell has all the answers, doesn't he? The sound of soft chuckling told me Rian had returned to witness my wrath. Calm down. Les. That's not what I meant. As my toes touched Rowan's, I stared up at his imposing form, but I wasn't ready to stop. My rage didn't need an excuse, just an outlet, and I had been waiting for this opportunity. I watched as aggravation flickered in his orbs, giving me a bit of satisfaction now. I will not calm down or take orders from you. Just remember, I'm not one of you pack members. My nostrils flared as I continued spewing my vitriol. You over-inflated, cocky asshole. Nobody can pick a fucking lock like Kat. Got it. Kat announced. Bravo. I'm not sure what's more impressive. We all turned in unison at the voice, and the hairs stood up on my arms. I never realized your talent. Katrina. Cormac quinsted, leaning against the doorframe, grinning, and my little girl, putting that mangy mutt in his place. However, this is not how I wanted you to find out everything. Fiona. I jumped, my heart in my throat, as Rowan grabbed my arms and pulled me behind his massive frame, while craning my head around his large arm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I doubt we have found everything. You slimy bastard. Cormac glared between me and Rowan. If you had been patient, I would have explained everything properly. And, of course, you wouldn't be facing such a dilemma right now. Silence surrounded us. Cormac entered the room lazily, almost like he enjoyed finding us in his lap. Warning bells screamed inside my head, and I knew we had to escape. ASAP. However, the opportunity had passed. Cormac let out a frenzied chortle before turning to the keypad inside the lab and tapping a button. I watched as the door seal shut, and I see fear sipped the breath from my lungs. Now it's time for a little chat among friends, Cormac said, a wide grin lifting the corner of his mouth while his eyes lowered to mere slits. We were fucked. Chapter 21, Death Blow Rowan's POV. As my heart sank to my stomach, it also thundered in my ears when I heard the distinct sound of Cormac Quinn's disgusting voice. My first instinct was to protect Fiona. My Luna, my fated mate, reverberated through my mind, rising above the deafening thump of my heart. At that moment, I understood just how important she was to me. I would protect her with my life against the enemy standing before us, in a moment that would determine my future. I vowed to claim Fiona if we survived. To hell with consequences or pushback from my pack. I'd meet it head on like a male and alpha. Whatever the outcome, we would face it together as a team. While standing in front of Fiona, I felt her fear and rage through our special bond. A bond Fiona didn't yet comprehend. But I knew she sensed something. She had to. We need to get out of here. My words were no more than a whisper, and I prayed she wasn't too distraught to notice. While she remained behind me, I felt her cheek touching my arm as she continued her tirade. My whole fucking life has been a lie. You were supposed to be my father. I am your father, and I didn't lie to you. I just admitted the truth. Now you, on the other hand, oh, the liar. I'm very disappointed. Fiona. Cormac teased and shook his head. You were supposed to be in New York. Don't you dare deflect and turn this on me. Fiona's voice had cracked, and I knew she was crying. You told me my mother died giving birth to me. All this time, I've blamed myself. Well, she's dead to me. Appearing bored, I allowed Fiona to continue, but I could tell her words were hitting their mark. And Cormac seemed agitated. You lied. And why didn't you tell me my mother was a fairy? Fiona spat. She still is a fairy, Cormac announced. So, she's alive. My mother has been alive this entire damn time. Fiona stumbled and grabbed my arm to right herself. Cormac nodded. And you? You took my wings, Fiona stated in a choked voice as she moved from behind me. Squaring off with her father, she took a step, and I followed close on her heels. I'm the daughter of a fairyant. You experimented on me. Did you experiment with her too? I already know what you've done to Kat. You sick bastard. Fiona was pacing in front of Cormac, and I stood on guard, watching his every move. I knew she needed this off of her chest. Cormac remained silent, and my disgust for him grew. The man looked so smug with a patronizing expression aimed at his daughter. The egotistical bastard cared for no one but himself. He would risk the lives of those he was supposed to love in the name of science or some sick obsession. Why don't we all sit down? Fiona, you're not being rational. Ignoring her question. That way, the 5 of us can communicate. Besides, it seems your new friends may be interested in this conversation. The bastard wagged his brows and winked at me. My inner werewolf was on high alert, and the air was heavy with tension. Ryan sided up to me, and I felt his presence. He was ready to fight, and so was I. Yet Quinn seemed serene, unaware of the danger ready to befall him. Stop deflecting and answer me, Fiona shouted, piercing him in the eyes with pure malice. We found a folder full of information and photos of my mother, and you removed my wings and Kat's. Fiona huffed and crossed her arms under her chest. Cormac shook his head and laughed. The sound grated, and I was ready to put my fist through his face. Answer her, Quinn, I demanded and charged toward him. All right, yes. A Merlinay is your mother and a fairy, which makes me a hybrid. So what? He lifted one shoulder. But I didn't lie about being your father and a Merlinay. Your mother. The possibility of Quinn forcing a fairy to conceive a child with him made me feel sick. Why did you remove our wings? Fiona asked, disbelief lacing her words. It was for the best, Quinn said, his tone condescending, like Fiona was a small child instead of an intelligent adult. I asked why, and I want the honest answer. Fiona barked. Why did you do it? What was in it for you? We all know you're a greedy, self-centered bastard, so don't patronize me, because I'm a bloody scientist, and I wanted answers. Cormac raked a hand over his balding head, and it was the perfect way to get them. We have to get the hell out here. Ryan whispered behind me, echoing my earlier thoughts. While I felt his anxiety and knew Quinn could be a threat, I realized this was important for Fiona. She needed answers to move on and deal with the trauma. But survival must come first. What did you do with my mother? Did you take her wings too? Fiona asked as tears ran down her pale cheeks. I grabbed Fiona's hand, pulling her toward me. Quinn raised his bushy brows at the prospect of me holding his daughter close. As I watched his jaw tense, I tried not to smile at the stupid bastard who should feel concerned over finding himself standing before 2 werewolves. Your mother is alive and well but turned her back on us. A Merlin only cared about herself. And she damn sure didn't care about you, kid. I'm the one who raised you and did right by you. You were a responsibility, a burden. So she left. She didn't want you. He cocked his head to the side and, with narrowed eyes, announced, your mother didn't love you. Fiona. Cormac's brutal, cruel words were life to Fiona's heart. I felt her pain like a blow sucking the air from my lungs. My rage boiled beneath the surface, and I knew Fiona was sensing my anger through our bond. I wished to take away all her pain and fill her with love, humor, and joy, but I couldn't mask or control my true emotions. You are far worse than they led me to believe. You are a fucking monster. Fiona shouted. Yes, yes, yes. You've already said as much after our last conversation, Cormac said, picking invisible lint off his suit jacket. Then he glanced up, a coy grin lifting the corner of his mouth. Now on to bigger issues, he announced with authority, his smile a distant memory. Sorry, but we are leaving now. Quinn. I pushed Fiona behind me toward Rianne for protection. For the first time since showing up and foiling our plans, I saw a flicker of fear in the man's eyes. Sorry, Alpha Wolf, but that will not happen. His delirious grin reappeared. The door remained sealed. You will open it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Pointing my finger at him. Or I'll force you to. Is that so? Yes, and I will give you a count of 3. Old man. Cormac chuckled. You mangy must think violence solves all your problems. How about we come to a compromise? He beetled his brows and glanced between me and Rianne. What kind of compromise? A wicked and perverse glint shone in his hollow eyes, causing fear to churn in my stomach. Well, it's a simple solution. 3 of you walk out of here free. He strode into the room and veered past me toward Rianne, who had an arm around each woman, Fiona and Kat. No, I shouted. We came as one, and we will leave as one. I turned and watched him standing before Katrina. Damn it. I knew we should have left her at home, but Regretson should have to be pointless now. Oh well, that's too bad. Cormac made another tear-king sound while remaining in front of Katrina. He reached to touch Kat's face, but Rianne slapped his hand away. I just thought we could make a fair exchange. He rocked back on his heels and threw me an evil grin over his shoulder before returning to the sealed door. Warning bells rang like sirens in my mind, and my inner wolf growled a sure sign of danger. I felt tiny prickles along my spine as my beast tried to emerge. Hair started sprouting down my back. My irises were changing, and I sensed the claws ready to explode from my fingertips. It took everything in me to stop shifting. I needed to know what the bastard was talking about before I ripped him apart. What do you mean? An exchange. I thought you gave back all of my pack members. That was the deal. Quinn. So it was. So it was. He nodded, smiling, and the urge to rip his hair from his shoulders was strong. I released all your mutts. Alfu Elkanal. But, you see, you have something precious to me. My Katrina. What is your sick fascination with her? You's come back. I advanced and took pleasure, watching his eyes widen in fear. She's a pure fairy. Cormac shrugged, and a nervous giggle escaped his chest. I folded my arms across my chest and laughed. You could find a pure fairy anywhere. You had a child with a pure fairy. Old man. I don't know the specifics, but bet your I'll find out everything about Fiona's mom. See, I don't buy your bullshit story. I shook my head. Cormac held out his palms. Fine. Katrina's mother isn't just a pure fairy. He cleared his throat. She's a queen fairy. The queen fairy. Queen of fairies. A collective sigh lent the air, but I knew growing surprised around Quinn could be a fatal mistake. I kept my narrowed eyes trained on the evil bastard. You have been experimenting with the queen of fairies. Man, you have some enormous balls. Despite my burning curiosity, my primary goal was to secure Fiona and Kat unscathed. Get to the point. Quinn, who could you have that would make me want to leave Katrina behind? Why, he seemed nervous. Quinn threw me a slight grin. Why, you're sweet, innocent little sister. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It felt like a death blow, knocking the wind out of me, as the bastard wagged his brows. That Kyra is special. She's such a smart young lass. I think we're going to be good friends. You fucking prick. I'll kill you with my bare hands. Rian rushed past me, charging Cormac. No, Rian. While nothing would make me happier than to tear the man apart, I needed him alive to find Kyra. But Rian ignored my warning, and even though Cormac Quinn had some years on us, it would be foolish to underestimate him. He was a trained supernatural hunter with years of battle experience under his belt. Before I could pull my brother away, I watched Cormac shove Rian, and a cloud of dust covered his body, filling the air. Rian screamed, falling to the floor, holding his hands over his eyes. As the dust settled around me, I coughed and fought the urge to close my burning eyes. Rowan, what's happening? Fiona yelled. Is Rian okay? Kat screamed, too, but I kept my burning, blurry gaze on Cormac, who was now rummaging through the metal cabinet that Kat unlocked. It's silver dust, I choked out while wondering how I would ever get us out of this predicament alive. Chapter 22, Tit for to Fiona's POV. My heart filled with horror as I looked at Rowan and Rian, who were both dazed and covered in angry red rashes. Meanwhile, Cormac stood unbothered, with the dust still floating around him, reiterating that he used a silver alloy. After my crash course in werewolves, I knew silver was their enemy. Cormac grinned down at Rian, who was still withering on the floor. Rowan had fared better than his brother and charged my evil father, punching him in the face. He stumbled backward, hitting the sealed door and sliding to the ground as blood dripped from his mouth and nose. I clung to Kat's hand as we watched the spectacle unfold. Rian pushed himself from the floor, coughing, and landed a blow with his boot to Cormac's ribs as he sat slumped over, dazed. Are you guys okay? Rowan nodded but pushed me away. The silver dust caught us off guard. He covered his mouth, coughing. Cormac has Kyra, and it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. I tried to stop my flow of tears. What are we going to do? We're stuck in this vaulted room, and what about Kyra? And we can't leave Kat. Fiona, Rowan snapped, grabbing me by my shoulders. Get a hold of yourself. You're hysterical and we must keep calm to survive. He glared into my eyes, his expression hard. Ask Kat if she knows how to get out of this fucking room. I nodded and tried to calm my erratic breathing. The bastard is coming around. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I may need some help. Riat stood over Cormac, ready to take him back down. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Go help Rian. I asked Kat about the door. As I started toward Kat, I noticed a large ornate frame encased in glass, showcasing a bow and to the left the open metal cabinet. Pictures of me posing with my bow and arrow beside Cormac throughout the years dotted the walls. When I was young, Cormac took me outside on our expansive property and taught me how to shoot. It was the only time he spent any quality time with me. When I found the sport boring, I was more into fashion. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And music, especially strong females like Janis Joplin, Kelly Clarkson, Etta James, and Taylor Swift. I still wanted him to be proud of me. After years of practice, I was almost as good as Cormac. A stone-like weight settled in my stomach, leaving me sick as I realized my father had been grooming, not spending quality time with me. He was preparing me to become a hunter like him. A nervous laugh threat and to escape my chest at his audacity and my naivety. I raced back to Kat, a crazy plan forming in my mind. Please tell me you know how to get out of this godforsaken room. If the guys can keep Cormac contained, I can't try. nodding, staring into space. Kat appeared to be in shock from realizing Cormac had Kyra and her mother was the queen of fairies. While I empathized with her, Rowan's warning echoed in my mind, and I shook her by the shoulders. Earth to Kat, I know you're upset, and so am I, but pull yourself together. I've got an idea and I need you prepared to get us out of this lab. Her head jerked up in surprise and she regarded me with focused eyes. What are you planning? I don't have time to explain. Just be ready. As soon as the words left my mouth, I heard a scuffle from behind. Cormac had eluded both brothers and made a run for the cabinet. Ryan grabbed his ankle, but the notorious hunter was agile for his age. He staggered to his feet and grabbed a handful of vials before dropping some onto the slick grate and crete floor. A strong odor wafted in the air, evoking the primeval scent of wood, loamy earth, wet moss, tangy pine, and a sweet floral aroma I couldn't recall. I knew it was now or never. Grab him, I yelled and rushed to the bow and arrow hanging on the wall. Seems they don't like wolfsbane. Cormac gave a harsh, bitter laugh, his room-wide eyes flat. It's one of my favorite poisons. He uncapped a vial and threw the liquid at Ryan, who shrieked. The sound was feral and terrifying. I turned and saw Ryan clasping his face. A strange black blood covered his hands now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Filled with horror as tears sprung from my eyes. Get it together. Rowan's words brought me back to reality, and I rushed straight for the bow and arrow. I shattered the glass, framing the bow with my fist. Despite the loud crash, Cormac continued punching Rowan, who was unable to defend himself because of the wolfsbane's effect. Now, Kat. I glanced over my shoulder, and she gave a swift nod. Keeping my attention off Rowan was difficult, but adrenaline compelled me forward. With the strong bow in hand, I grabbed the arrow and studied Cormac, my hands sweating from the stress. I watched my father kick Rowan in the ribs with satisfaction, enjoying being in control while Ryan still suffered on the floor. I adjusted my legs and pulled the bowstring taut, breathing in undoubt, and zeroed in on the bastard before taking my shot. The arrow hit Cormac in the neck and he fell to the ground, wailing from the pain. Ryan jumped to his feet and helped Rowan, while I sprinted toward Kat at the door. Cormac quivered in misery, holding the wound, as blood gushed from his neck. What have you done? He yelled. I'm your father and they are the enemy. They are your enemy, not mine. And you are not my father. Not anymore. Kat was occupied playing an old voicemail from Cormac. Hoping to trick the voice, activated lock. Katrina. Crawling toward her. Think about what you are doing. I loved you so much. Don't turn your back on. I kicked him in the face, knocking him unconscious, and dug through his coat pockets until I found what I was searching for. Bingo. I held up the card that controlled the entrance and exit of the lab. Let's go, I declared and caught the astounded expression on all their faces. Well, come on. We have to get you guys home and to the healer. I'm already healing. Ryan will be fine too. Rowan glanced at his brother, frowning, but he requires some help. We left the lad and Cormac behind. I peered between the brothers and noticed he was right. It's a werewolf thing. Lars. I smiled and closed the door, locking Cormac in with my heart lodged in my throat. Whatever it is, I'm glad. I was so worried. A deep sigh escaped my lips as I took one last look around my childhood home. My father, the man I grew up idolizing, was pure evil, the worst kind of monster. We all ran, and with every step, I felt my heart drumming in my ears as my bosom heaved. I kept looking over my shoulder, fearing some new threat or enemy would emerge from around some corner and take us back to Quinn's lab. But we made it to the SUV, leaving the danger behind, and I almost felt relieved until I thought about Kyra. Rowan started the vehicle and the smell of blood, sweat, and flour filled the inside of the car from their burned skin. Shit, Rowan shouted, slamming his hand on the dashboard. Shit, shit, shit. Silence engulfed the SUV. After giving him some time, I reached over and touched his arm. "I'm so sorry." "Don't. None of this is your fault," Rowan responded in a firm voice. "But he is Kyra, and you both could have died. We all knew what we were doing." "Going in," Rian announced from the back seat, and I turned, regarding him. Even with the smeared black blood and red whelps covering his skin, he gave me a reassuring smile. "Why didn't you guys want to search the house for Kyra?" Kat asked, staring at Rian seated beside her. "He would never try hiding her there," Rian answered. "I'm the reason he was able to get to her. I should have listened to you, Rowan, and stayed with Kyra. Can you ever forgive me?" I heard Kat's sniffles and looked back, observing tears pouring down her flushed cheeks. "Kat, if I wanted you to stay with Kyra, you would have stayed. It was my fault. Don't antagonize yourself over my shortcomings." Rowan slammed his palm on the steering wheel. We traveled on in silence until Rowan pulled into a long gravel driveway, and the morning sun passed behind the clouds. "What are you doing here?" Rihanna asked and groaned. "I will be fine. But you aren't healing, bro. You got the brunt of the poison and we need her help." Rowan peeked over his shoulder at Rihanna with a hard glare. "Just wait in the car and I'll see if Elma is home." I can't stand witches. Elma's okay, but I despise her granddaughter, Vionne, Rian complained. "She's that crazy one from the other night." "Well, we need a witch, jackass. And Elma is an old, kind, and powerful witch. Plus, we need Vionne now more than ever." Rowan parked in front of a thatched roof cottage that looked straight out of a yonder, your fairy tale. Ivy covered most of the house, and weeds were taking over the garden, strangling the remaining plants and flowers. "I'll be right back. Ryan, keep an eye out and honk the horn if there's trouble." Ryan sat up alert. My senses are still intact, despite my wounds. My ears perked, and I stared out the window, watching the sky turn grey. What's going on? Is someone following us? And why is it getting dark? "It looks like it's about to storm," Kat said, gazing out the back of the SUV. "There's nothing to worry about. But it's not a storm. Sit tight. I'll be back." Rowan got out and disappeared inside the creepy looking cottage. Within minutes, the early morning sky was now pitch black, and I saw Owen exit the cottage, jogging toward the vehicle with his hands full. As soon as his ass hit the seat, he locked the doors and placed some small glass jars in the center console. He took a handkerchief, dousing it with a swamp-colored liquid from one of the containers, and handed it to Rian. "Elma hasn't seen Vionne and doesn't know where she is. But I've alerted the pack about Kyra." "Good." Ryan wiped his face with the wet cloth and a sizzling sound resonated throughout the vehicle. He hissed in pain before a groan of relief passed from his lips. "Are you going to be okay now?" Grimacing. "Yeah, but wolfsbane is lethal to wolves. It was eating my skin. We got to get rid of these clothes, bro." Rowan glanced back at Rian, and I saw an ominous look pass between them. "Yes, let's do it now." They hopped from the vehicle and Rowan opened the back hatch, pulling out a duffel bag and supplies. "They are gonna strip without clothes, and I'm so upset that I'm not even tempted to peek." Kat frowned. "This is all so unreal. I don't know what to feel, say or think, Kat. We are lucky to be alive. But this whole day, the words died on my tongue and I sighed. "Yeah, I know. We need to discuss it. But I have to process everything first." Kat let out a deep sigh matching mine. "And why is it dark? I'm so freaked out." Before I could respond, the smell of smoke caused us to turn, and we stared in awe as the brothers threw their wolfsbane stained clothing into a raging fire of intense blue, green, and purple flames. I think it's safe to say that this day just keeps getting more bizarre. Kat kept her gaze on the fire, and I think we should stop being stunned by all this, since it seems to be our new norm. I said right before the guys hopped back into the vehicle, leaving me to eat my words. My mouth dropped open, and my eyes widened in shock as I stared at them. This can't be real. You are both completely healed. Rowan chuckled. We heal a lot faster than humans. But with wolfsbane, depending on the severity, it requires a special antidote. Elmer's brew was potent stuff, inducing Rianne's skin to heal within minutes. Why was that fire green, blue, and purple? Kat asked, brows hitting her hairline. It was a fatuous fire. Rianne explained. We used it to burn our clothes, and it keeps certain people or things from tracking us. Are we being followed? I stared at Rowan, waiting for a response. But he ignored me and turned the SUV around, leaving Elmer's cottage. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's just get back to the house. Les? He gave me a tight smile. Ryan and I need to shower and set up an emergency council meeting. We have to make plans with the pack to find Kaya. As we traveled back down the dark, non-gravel drive, I spotted a pair of yellow glowing eyes watching us. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.